Don't you just love candles? Hi everyone. So we are here again for another video to celebrate the amazing month of October 2020, which I'm recording this in advance, so I hope it's going okay. But yeah, Halloween is upon us, and I hope that you are getting into the spooky spirit along with me. I'm back today to talk about some Japanese urban legends slash ghost stories that I thought would be interesting to share. Now, I actually went to Japan for my delayed honeymoon last year, so I find this extra fascinating. And honestly, I had never heard of any type of Japanese urban legend or ghost story up until I started researching these. So I don't know if I'm just ignorant or what, but we'll just go with that, and here we are. So the first story that I'm going to share with you guys is the Okiku doll. This is also known as the haunted doll of Hokkaido. So there are various different backstories about this urban legend, but I'm going to talk about one of the most popular. So back in 1918, a 17-year-old boy bought this doll for his 3-year-old sister named Kikuko. He gave it to her as a gift, and she decided that she really loved this doll. I mean, instantly they were pretty much inseparable. She took this doll everywhere she went. Anything that she was doing, she had to have the doll with her. She slept with it at night. She adored this doll. So it quickly became an identifier with her. Whenever people thought about Kikuko, they thought about this little doll that she was always carrying around, and she just loved it so much. So props to the 17-year-old boy that bought it for her, because he knew what he was doing and he got her the best gift ever. Now, unfortunately, Kikuko did pass away due to a severe cold that she got, which, can you imagine how sad that would be to lose a family member, especially when that young? Obviously, the family was very devastated with this loss, and they set up a shrine in their house to honor her memory. And of course, they had to include the doll in this shrine because it really was something that she cared about so much. So having it on the shrine on display, they were looking at it a lot, and that's how they were able to discover when some pretty weird changes started occurring with the doll. Now, this doll originally had an okappa hairstyle, which is basically jaw length, more or less, with a straight fringe across the front for bangs. And soon enough, the family started to notice something, and you know, it took them a little bit to figure out if they were just making things up. But sure enough, after keeping their eye on this doll for several days, several months, they started to notice that the hair was actually growing longer. So after observing this and knowing what this doll meant to Kikuko, the family began to think that the doll was actually possessed by Kikuko's spirit, and that's why its hair was growing so long. So they kept this doll in their household, but eventually the family did move away from Hokkaido, but they decided not to take the doll with them. So instead they entrusted it at Menenji Temple, which put the doll on display, and to this day you can still go and visit it. Now, taking pictures of the doll is actually forbidden. However, there are still pictures circulating online, so take that for what it is. I'm going to insert the pictures here so that you can take a look at this doll. So as you can see, the doll's hair has grown very long, and it is said to have gotten as long to the bottom of its feet. The monks do regularly trim its hair, and this is honestly considered bad luck. But the reason why they do this is because one of the monks at the temple said that he was actually visited by Kikuko in a dream, and she asked him to please start trimming the doll's hair because it was getting so long. And so now they do that as a form of respect. There are claims that this doll has been scientifically analyzed, and it stated that the hair growing out of it is actually human child hair. Also, there are claims that the doll's mouth, which started closed, has been opening gradually more and more and more and more and more as the months and the years go by. Now it's said that if you're visiting this doll and you peek into its mouth, you can actually see little teeth coming out of the gums, and they're said to be little girl teeth. So take that for what you want. That's a very short story that I'm sharing with you, but again, there's not a ton of information. It's a very straightforward urban legend. I still find it a bit creepy. I know a lot of people enjoy hearing about haunted or possessed dolls. I mean, Annabelle is a really good example of that. So here's just another one out of the collection. What do you think? Do you believe that the Okiku doll is actually possessed? Regardless, it's a very sad story, and this is surely something that I would be interested in visiting next time I go to Japan, which hopefully will be in like the year 2022, like I hope. Okay, next we're going to talk about Kuchisake Onna, and I don't remember if I already said this, but I want to apologize because I did take Japanese language classes in preparation for my trip last year. However, it's been about a year since I took those classes, so I'm sure my pronunciation isn't the best. So please bear with me if you do know Japanese and I'm butchering this. I'm very sorry, but anyway, we're going to talk about Kuchisake Onna. Kuchisake Onna, also known as the slit-mouthed woman, is a legend that's been around since the Edo period of Japan, which spanned from the 17th to the 19th century. However, back in the 1970s, this urban legend picked back up and was especially popular with school children at the time, as they shared stories of Kuchisake Onna and they claimed to know people who knew someone who encountered the ghost. Again, as with most ghost stories or urban legends, there are several different versions, but I'm just going to go over briefly what was most common when I was doing my research. So the story that the school children would tell one another is to be very careful when walking home after school, especially if it was later towards the end of the day at night when the streets were empty, when they were dark and only lit by street lamps. I mean, that's creepy enough as it is, especially as a young child, but Kuchisake Onna just threw an entire new ring into the mix. Now, according to legend, there was a woman long ago who was very beautiful, and she was married to a very jealous man. Now, whether she solicited it or not, she received a lot of attention because of her good looks, and one day her husband could no longer handle his jealousy. He killed her, but while doing so, he took a sword and he slit her mouth all the way across her face from ear to ear. She had a very painful, brutal death. Now, as you may or may not know, with pretty much any ghost story, when there's a violent death like that, the soul of the person who died is pretty much doomed to roam the earth and seek vengeance or closure for what happened to them. That's the case with Kuchisake Onna. She is a very vengeful, angry spirit, and you really don't want to encounter her. If you are a young child that is walking home at night, you want to make sure to look around every street post that you come across, because that's where Kuchisake Onna is known to hide. She will hide behind a lamppost and step out in front of you when you least expect it. Now, if you encounter Kuchisake Onna, you might not initially be on guard with her because she hides her slit mouth behind a surgical mask. Now, one thing to think about, and you have to think about this in terms of before COVID started, because now, you know, it doesn't really mean much to say that, but especially in Japan back in the 70s, way before COVID started, it was still a cultural norm to wear a surgical or a medical mask to protect the people around you if you did have a cold or some kind of infection or disease that you didn't want to spread. It was just common courtesy. And, you know, even us before COVID, we went to Japan last year. We went during flu season. There were so many people that we encountered that were wearing masks, and it's just normal. So if a woman were to walk out in front of you wearing a surgical mask, you really wouldn't think much of it. But this is when you really have to be on alert, because you may or may not realize it might be Kuchisake Onna. The telltale sign that Kuchisake Onna has decided to visit you is she will stop you while you're walking, and she'll say two words to you: Watashi gurai, which basically means, am I pretty? Now, we'll get to this in a bit because legends vary, but the way that you answer Kuchisake Onna is very important, almost like a riddle. When she asks you, Watashi gurai, you want to say yes. If you say yes, she's going to test your honesty and she's going to remove her mask. This is going to reveal the slit mouth that she has on her face. You have to be careful not to scream, not to back up, not to flinch, not to react at all. Because if you do, she's going to get offended and she'll immediately kill you right then and there. She'll ask you again, Watashi gurai? This is when you say yes. When you do that, she'll step aside and she'll let you continue on your walk home. Now, unfortunately, with most versions of this story, that doesn't mean that you're necessarily saved, but it does mean that you have a few more hours to enjoy your life, because she's going to follow you home, and in the middle of the night while you're sleeping, she's going to come into your room and she's going to slit your mouth from ear to ear, just like hers. And your body will be found and you will have a slit mouth in honor of the slit mouth woman. Another version of this story says that when she approaches you, you can say something to confuse her, and that will save your life, not just in the moment, but thereon. She will not even follow you home. What you need to do is, when she asks you, am I pretty? Don't say yes and don't say no. Say something in the middle, like, meh, or so. But again, you have to be very careful to react the same way before and after she takes her mask off. I think for me, the thing that creeps me out the most of this story is that so much of it depends on being, you know, the wrong place at the wrong time. And not only that, but saying the right thing at the right time. I mean, if you think about it with life, our whole existence is based on being in the right place at the right time. You know, perhaps I continue to see the day because I didn't encounter Kuchisake Onna while I was walking my dogs home last night. To me, Kuchisake Onna, it's a very sad story about a woman that was abused by her husband. And unfortunately, she's going to seek vengeance. And all I can hope is that if she is a real soul, that she will someday get some rest. So I don't know, would you ever want to take a risk and encounter Kuchisake Onna at night? Do you think that you'd be able to fool her by confusing her? Or do you think that it doesn't matter because she's going to come after you regardless of what you say and do? I don't know. I like to believe that you would have a way out, but unfortunately, more often than not, it seems like that's not going to happen. All right, well, I know that was only 2 stories, but that's going to be it for me today. What did you guys think about that? Would you like to go see the Okiku doll someday? Do you believe that she's truly possessed? Do you believe in possessed dolls at all? I know a lot of my friends do. A lot, especially growing up. That was just like... Alright, so I'll be back soon with another Halloween related video. And until then, I hope you continue to enjoy your October and stay safe, stay spooky, and let's keep rocking. Bye!